G'day, Bomber fans. So no surprises here. Sam Draper has now officially left the Essendon Football Club to play for the Brisbane Lions. The question really we've been asking since he announced his desire for a move was what compensation the club would receive for him. It's been discussed for a while. Many experts have been calling it a genuine 50-50 as to whether it would be Band 1 or Band 2. Band 1 being a top 10 pick, a pick 5 at the time of filming, and Band 2 would be pick 20. And now the AFL has crunched its numbers. When taking free agency into account, there are quite a few factors. It centers around the player's new contract length and salary and the player's age and whatnot. And unfortunately, even though Draper is on very good money at Brisbane, the fact he is a year older than other free agents, 27, means it is ticked over to Band 2. So Essendon will receive pick 20 for Sam Draper. So yeah, a few things to talk about. I've already discussed Draper and farewelled him on the channel, but again, we will start by giving him some love. I think we can understand the reason for a move here. He's not only seeking a fresh start for that body, but he's also going to be on more money with Brisbane, with more contract security at another club. I've got no issues here with him wanting a change of space. I think it makes sense for him. But yeah, this now really all is about the compensation and what we do with it, so let's discuss that. So pick 20, I mean, is it fair for Sam Draper? I'd probably say yes. Like, I think if Essendon had received pick 5, Band 1 compensation, it would have been a big bonus, but it would have been a bad look for the AFL as well. I love Sam Draper, but he is not Band 1 worthy. And the issue is, right, because this is where Essendon fans are going to feel hard done by. And we're going to question the system a bit, because the AFL has been leaping through hoops this year to try and find the best outcomes for West Coast with their assistance package. Oscar Allen is reportedly on a very similar contract to Draper, but will generate Band 1 compensation, which is pick 2 at the draft. That's a massive boost for Oscar Allen, whereas the Bombers get, something they're probably not even going to use for Sam Draper. Then on top of that, the AFL gave West Coast a late round draft selection to use on Brandon Starcevich in a trade. So if they had brought him in as a free agent, which he is, the compensation for Oscar Allen would have been diluted, meaning they can now trade for him thanks to the AFL instead of using him as a free agent, and that trade won't affect Oscar Allen compensation. And that's fine for a struggling club. I get that, it's really hard for bottom 4 teams to attract free agents, but we do have to remember this team won a flag 7 years ago. They've had 2 flags in the last 20 years. They've been in 2 more grand finals on top of that. Meanwhile, the Bombers have been languishing down in no man's land for a couple of decades. Priority packages and AFL assistance should not be a result from, 3 to 4 years of pain. West Coast ruined this list after it was so good, and they're rebuilding out of it. The AFL is giving them help, but also while doing that, we got to remember they're helping out Brisbane as well, because the Lions wouldn't have got a pick that high for Brandon Starcevich for free agency. That would have been diluted too. So this assistance package is helping West Coast, but as a result of that is helping the best team in the comp, Brisbane, who are getting so much better on top of that. So I really think the AFL has a huge equalisation problem, and it has for a while. It's no, this isn't a hot take. Everyone thinks this. I'm not even asking for help for the Bombers or anything, but looking at where West Coast and Essendon are currently at, yes, the Eagles are a lot worse right now, but, they've had sustained success over the last 20 years as well. They're in a rough patch, whereas Essendon have been in a rough patch for longer. A long time with no assistance. In fact, the opposite of assistance with Asada. But, it's because we haven't bottomed out yet. Clubs get reward for bottoming out, and it feels weird to me that so soon after a flag, you can get a leg up just by ruining your list. So yeah, it doesn't really sit entirely right with me personally, but if we're judging Essendon's Draper compensation without context on other teams, pick 20 is fair. Like, you can't really complain too much about getting pick 20 for Sam Draper. If we had gotten pick 5, yes, Bomber fans wouldn't be complaining, but the entire AFL would be. It would have been a really weird look if we had gotten a pick that high for him. So now Essendon have a draft hand of picks 4, 5, 20, 26, and 29, that's really strong. Those are good picks, and of course there's a chance of a Zach Merritt trade, which would make that hand even better. But let's just think about this haul as it is right now. So picks 4 and 5 will be used on draft night on a couple of the best young talents in this crop. Anything that early, Essendon will be using. But picks 20, 26, and 29, those are all probably likely going to be traded away. And that is where it gets a bit interesting. So Essendon have 2 NGA prospects. Hussein Elachkar is likely to receive a bid in the in the 30 to 40, 45 range. But Adam Swade is expected to generate some interest earlier, possibly in the 20s, which means the Bombers will prepare for that possibility by trading away those selections to ensure they aren't eaten up if a bid comes for Swade before them. So for clubs to match a bid on an NGA prospect, you need to acquire the correct amount of draft capital, which comes from the next available selections in your draft hand. So if a bid came for Swade at pick 19, Essendon would have to use pick 20 to match it if it stayed in the draft hand. So I think by the end of the trade period, Essendon will have moved on picks 20, 26, and 29. Also, those picks will slide back a bit on draft night as well. Take that into account. So yeah, a few things. For starters, the Bombers will be getting late draft capital, probably in the 35 to 50 range to match bids for those players, Swade and LH Carr. So, a way to do this, last year the Lions traded away pick 27 to get 35 and 48 in return. I would expect Essendon to be packaging one or both of those second rounders away to get a host of selections available later in the draft to match bids. That 30 to 50 range is really gold for matching bids on prospects in our range when they'll have a bid on them. So what they can do here is they can use that to not only move down the order, but also get a leg up in another area. So for example, let's say Braden Fiorini requests a move to Essendon. The Bombers would be trading for him despite his free agent status. Essendon could say to Gold Coast, look, if we sign him as a free agent, you wouldn't get anything back in return or much back in return. So we're going to give you picks 20 and 26. You give us 4 to 5 late draft selections and Braden Fiorini, and we call it a day. Now, that might not happen that exactly, but something to that extent could. Even if it's just bringing in enough draft capital, but also getting a future selection in as well to cover our bases for next season. That makes sense. So that is a big reason why the club will be looking to trade these picks away rather than just keep them and hope a bid doesn't come early. It is better to be proactive than reactive when it comes to the NGA system, and it's a really easy landscape for clubs to exploit with these lean bidding rules as they currently are. In fact, this is the last year that clubs can exploit these rules the way that we will. They're becoming more strict, and it will be harder for clubs to match bids in the future. But as of right now, the Bombers are in a really good position in that it is very easy to acquire draft capital for bids, but also get more out of it as well. So something else the club may look at doing is moving up the draft order. There are a few clubs in the draft who will be looking to move away early picks. Gold Coast and Carlton have selections that they won't be able to use, fairly high up. The Bombers could look to package 2 of those picks in the 20s together to get something in the teens or even earlier. That is definitely possible, and the club would likely still find a way to match bids for Swade and LH Carr on top of that, although it would make it more difficult to do so. So there's a chance Essendon enter the draft with picks 4, 5, and maybe something like picks 14 or 17 on top of that, from Gold Coast. That is definitely a possible trade, and the Suns are a team looking for selections in the 20s for better value on their academy bids. Same with Carlton. They're going to be looking for picks in that range as well. I would also really hope the club looks at getting something for 2026 and maybe even 2027. There isn't much value in that 2027 draft, for some clubs because of Tasmania. They're going to compromise that, but we will have quite a few NGA and father sons to handle, so we will need capital in that 2027 draft. Preparing for it now could be beneficial for the Bombers in the future. And even 2026, I talked about this the other day. I don't even know if I did it on this channel, but I've talked about it. I really like the look of the 2026 draft. Even if it was just swapping, pick 20 this year for another club's second rounder next year, I think that would make a lot of sense. Any way to boost up future drafts before Tassie come in and shake things up, I think you'll find the club will be looking at ways to do that. But what this tells me now, and it's really interesting how, news being made official can change the vibe a bit. But if Essendon had received Band 1 compensation and had those 3 top 10 picks, I'd be comfortable with the club taking those to the draft, and I'd probably feel better about keeping Merritt to his contract if a deal couldn't get done. But now as we enter the draft with those 2 top 10 picks, which is still great, but it makes the proposition of a Merritt trade even exciting for Bomber fans if it was to eventuate. I think most of us in this community kind of hope it will, but only if we got a lot for it in return. So Hawthorn are going to offer pick 8. The Bombers are apparently pretty firm in that it would take a minimum of 2 first round selections to get it done. Probably more on top of that realistically. That to me is really valuable, not just for boosting this draft, but getting the most out of the next 2 drafts as well. So Hawthorn are okay to trade away their capital before Tassie enter. They want that flag now. But the Bombers do need to be getting enough quality young talent in through the draft in the next few years while there is still time. That is the position we're in. We're rebuilding. And if a merit trade can get done, I would be more than content. If Essendon ended up having picks 4, 5, 8, plus those second rounders that give us a lot of flexibility and likely some future capital from the Hawks as well, or something else from a third party, it would be a great position to be in building for the future. Although it would significantly harm our chances of getting better quicker than expected in 2026. We'd be down the bottom of the ladder, but I think we're going to be down there anyway. So I'm all for a merit trade if we can get the right price, especially after this compensation was announced. But yeah, to sum everything up, Sam Draper is going to Brisbane officially. The Bombers will be getting pick 20 back in return, and that pick and others after it will be traded away. The good news is there is a lot to work with to still boost that draft hand on top of how good it already is. Cheers for watching, Bomber fans. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and go Bombers.